The day began like any other in sunny Sicily. Tourists milled about, locals sipped espresso. The Mediterranean Sea was a picture of calm, but an unseen enemy was gathering its strength. Far out, the air began to shift, subtle at first, a whisper, then a murmur, then a growl. The weather forecasts had hinted at strong winds. Nobody, however, was truly prepared for the sheer ferocity that was about to be unleashed upon the unsuspecting island and the ships that sailed too close to its shores that fateful afternoon. The sky, once a brilliant azure, started to brood with an ominous gray. The wind arrived not as a gentle guest, but as an invading force. It swept across the ancient landscapes of Sicily with a sudden, shocking power. Palm trees, usually standing tall and proud, bent over as if in supplication. Dust and debris swirled into impromptu cyclones, dancing madly through the narrow streets of coastal towns. Shutters on old buildings rattled violently, a percussive warning of the chaos to come. The sea, moments before a placid mirror, began to show whitecaps, then angry, frothing waves. The change was alarmingly swift, a testament to nature's untamed might when provoked. Fishermen quickly secured their small boats, their faces etched with concern. On board the grand cruise ship, the Ocean Wanderer, passengers were initially oblivious. They were enjoying the amenities. Some lounged by the pool, others dined in the elegant restaurants. The ship was a floating city of leisure and luxury. The first signs of trouble were dismissed as minor turbulence. A slight rock, a stronger sway. Drinks sloshed a little, laughter still filled the air, but the experienced crew members exchanged worried glances. They knew the signs. They felt the barometric pressure dropping. The ship's horn blared a mournful, extended note, a sound that would soon become a chilling memory. The wind howled. It was a physical presence now. It shrieked through the ship's rigging. It slammed against the vast walls of glass on the upper decks. The Ocean Wanderer, a behemoth of modern engineering, began to feel small and vulnerable against the elemental fury. The captain's voice, usually calm and reassuring, crackled over the intercom, urging passengers to return to their cabins. But for some, it was already too late to find easy refuge. The Mediterranean, so often a gentle host, was transforming into a raging beast, intent on showing its displeasure with an incredible display of raw power. The cruise ship, once a symbol of stability, became a chaotic playground for the storm. It pitched and rolled with violent, unpredictable motions. The vessel groaned under the strain. Sounds of shattering glass echoed from somewhere below. Alarms began to blare, their piercing shrieks adding to the rising panic among the passengers. People who had been casually strolling the decks moments before now clung to railings, their faces pale with fear. Crew members trained for emergencies struggled to maintain order, their shouts barely audible above the roar of the wind and the crashing waves. It was a scene of utter disarray. Panic spread like wildfire. Deck chairs, unsecured, became dangerous projectiles, skittering across the slippery, tilting surfaces. Some slid with tremendous force, crashing into bulkheads or terrifyingly towards the railings. Suitcases and personal belongings tumbled from overturned loungers. Screams mixed with the wind's roar. Children cried, clinging to their parents. The sheer force of the wind was breathtaking, literally stealing the air from lungs. It was difficult to stand, even harder to move purposefully. The ship felt as though it was being tossed around like a toy in a bathtub by a malevolent giant. Inside the ship, the chaos was just as intense, though different in nature. In the grand dining rooms, tables overturned. Crockery and cutlery cascaded to the floor, creating a dangerous carpet of broken shards. Lights flickered, then went out in some sections, plunging terrified passengers into momentary darkness. The ship's gentle sway had transformed into violent lurches that threw people from their seats. The opulent halls, designed for sophisticated enjoyment, now resembled the aftermath of an earthquake, a testament to the storm's overwhelming strength. Staff did their best to guide people, but the environment was treacherous. The captain's announcements became more urgent. Stay inside, hold on to something secure. The message was clear, the situation was dire, but the wind's fury was relentless, prying at every potential weakness of the massive vessel. Waves, now mountainous, crashed over the bow, sending plumes of white water high into the air, which then cascaded down onto the exposed decks. Each impact felt like a hammer blow, shaking the entire structure of the ship. The feeling of safety that a large cruise liner normally provides had completely evaporated, replaced by a primal fear of the raging elements. The critical moment arrived with a particularly monstrous wave. It struck the Ocean Wanderer abeam, heeling the massive ship over to a terrifying angle. A collective gasp, a symphony of fear rose from those on deck. This was no ordinary roll. This was a lurch that spoke of imminent disaster. The railings, once a barrier of safety, dipped dangerously close to the raging water. For those unfortunate enough to be caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, the world tilted beyond recovery. Their grip, already tenuous, was broken by the sheer force of gravity and the slick, wet deck. It happened in horrifying slow motion for those who witnessed it, yet with shocking speed for those who fell. One moment, people were desperately holding on. The next, they were airborne, flailing, then disappearing into the tumultuous gray-green water. Screams were swallowed by the storm. There was no graceful entry, only a violent plunge into the cold, angry embrace of the sea. The churning waves were merciless, a chaotic maelstrom of foam and fury. The sight was sickening, a visceral punch to the gut for everyone remaining on board. The ship itself seemed to cry out, its structure groaning under the immense stress. The horror was immediate and profound. Passengers and crew who saw their fellows vanish into the waves stared in disbelief, then terror. Some pointed, speechless. Others screamed names into the wind, a futile gesture against the storm's overwhelming noise. The ship, despite its size, felt utterly insignificant against the backdrop of such elemental power. The water below was not the inviting Mediterranean blue. It was a dark, churning abyss, promising only peril. The thought of being in that water, at the mercy of those waves, was an unimaginable terror that gripped every soul on board. The sea was a maelstrom. Waves crested and crashed with brutal indifference. The wind whipped spray into the faces of those still on deck, a stinging reminder of the danger. Anyone in the water would be tossed about like a rag doll, struggling for air, fighting against the cold and the relentless motion. The ship, still battling the storm, was already moving away from where they fell, each second increasing the distance and diminishing the hope of a quick rescue. The urgency was palpable, a desperate race against time and the raging elements. The beautiful Sicilian coast was now a distant, mocking promise of safety. The instant the passengers went overboard, the ship's emergency protocols kicked into high gear, despite the ongoing storm. Alarms specifically designed for man-overboard situations blared across the vessel, adding another layer of urgent sound to the already cacophonous environment. Crew members, their faces grim and determined, rushed to their emergency stations. Lifebuoys were thrown, though the wind instantly snatched at them, making accurate deployment nearly impossible. The captain barked orders, trying to maneuver the massive ship in the violent seas, a feat of incredible seamanship and immense risk. Every second counted in the cold, unforgiving water. The rescue attempt was fraught with peril. Launching lifeboats in such conditions was itself a dangerous operation. The smaller craft would be battered by the same waves that were tossing the cruise ship. Crew members tasked with the rescue knew they were putting their own lives on the line. The wind howled and visibility was poor due to the spray and the fading light of the stormy afternoon. Spotting a person in the vast, churning expanse of gray water was like searching for a needle in a haystack, only the haystack was actively trying to drown you. The courage of the rescuers was immense. Slowly, painstakingly, the rescue mission began to show results. Shouts were heard over the wind. A spotter had seen someone. The rescue crafts, expertly handled, fought their way through the towering waves. One by one, some of the unfortunate passengers were pulled from the grip of the furious sea. They were hypothermic, battered, and utterly terrified, but alive. The relief on their faces, and on the faces of their rescuers, was immense, though a grim count was still underway. Not everyone might be so fortunate. The sea was still a dangerous place, and the storm showed no signs of abating quickly. As the last of the known overboard passengers were accounted for, either rescued or tragically lost, the ocean wanderer slowly limped towards the nearest Sicilian port, battered and scarred. The immediate aftermath was one of shock and grief. The incident served as a stark reminder of the untamable power of nature and the inherent risks of sea travel, even on the most modern vessels. Investigations would follow, and safety procedures would undoubtedly be reviewed. For those who endured the chaos, the memory of the Sicilian storm and the desperate fight for survival would remain etched in their minds forever, a chilling testament to a holiday turned nightmare.